Всім добрий вечір.
On behalf of the brave, on behalf of every father and every mother, wings for freedom. On behalf of our warriors, and paves the way for a new history.
Hello and welcome to Tochnyi Weekly, the show that gets behind the headlines to discuss the Russian invasion of Ukraine. We have an excellent show for you today. A lot happened this week. Hope you had a good week, chat. We're doing pretty well over here. We have good news to share, which is that Daniela's article on the Russian listening station in Kaliningrad got a lot of traction. Basically, I think I can say all of the specialist publications that look at specifically Russian military stuff or stuff related to Ukrainian publications and things like that, and some of it is starting to filter up to mainstream publications like Newsweek and other sources, and they're all citing Tochnyi, and it's really great to see Daniela's article with really accurate information getting out there to a broader public and being shared. And not only that, but they're giving us credit, which we don't always get credit. We're happy to just do it to improve the quality of the information sphere about Ukraine in general. So, we don't need credit, but it's always really nice for me to see our researchers get credit where it's due. So, really congratulations to Daniela, and we look forward to more articles of the future from our contributors. And we do also ask, if you could, please do like the stream. Appreciate it. It helps us out. And subscribe, of course, to Tochnyi if you haven't already. And this week we will do the standard stuff, which is I will provide the news. That'll be followed by our report from Mr. German Aid to Ukraine. Then Stanimir will give his report on the Russian economy. But we also have two special guests today, our contributors Jay and Vincent, who will be discussing a little bit about what's going on the front lines. So that should be very interesting because we haven't had an update in a while. If you could, of course, check out our website, tochnyi.info. That's where all of the articles that we publish are. And also, we do post a few updates on Twitter and Blue Sky. So if you are the social media type, you want to hear from us, that's where you can find us. And so without any further delay, I will now present the news.
These are the main headlines as of August 24th, 2025. First up, we have operations. Ukraine's naval forces reported carrying out a strike against a Russian-controlled drone facility in Sevastopol, Crimea on August 22nd. The operation targeted the Khersonis airfield, where 3 Mohajer-6 drones of Iranian manufacture and 2 Russian four-post drones were destroyed, according to the Navy. Officials said these unmanned aircraft are used by Russia to track movement across the Black Sea. The Mohajer-6 model is capable of traveling distances of up to 200 kilometers, while the four-post type has been in Russian service since 2014. Following the start of the full-scale invasion in 2022, the four-post drones were primarily operated from the south by air forces attached to the Black Sea Fleet and were deployed to strike Ukrainian coastal defense systems, particularly Bastion missile units. The Ukrainian Navy did not disclose what weapons were employed in the strike or exactly when it took place. Independent verification of the reports is not currently available. On August 22nd, Ukraine's 118th Separate Mechanized Brigade announced that its air defense forces had brought down a Russian Orlan drone carrying 2 smaller first-person view drones attached beneath its wings. The unit said this was the first recorded case of destroying what they described as a mother drone designed to transport other unmanned aircraft. The brigade explained in a statement that its pursuit platoon had previously intercepted numerous Russian reconnaissance drones, including Orlan, Zala, and Supercam models, but had never before downed a carrier drone of this type. The Orlan, a Russian-built surveillance aircraft, is extensively employed in the war and is known among Ukrainian forces as a tool used to guide artillery fire. It is capable of covering up to 600 kilometers and can reach an altitude of 5,000 meters. Ukrainian forces have previously reported shooting down Orlans operating at high altitudes. Reports indicate that Ukraine is working with Germany's Quantum Systems to produce its own drone carrier named Sparta, which is being developed to transport 2 FPV drones with an operational range of 200 kilometers. The Ukrainian Telegram channel Exile Nova Plus reported that drones carried out an attack on the Novoshakhtinsk oil refinery in Russia's Rostov region. The facility was reportedly defended by 2 Pantsir systems and 1 Tor air defense unit, but these were unable to stop the strike. Residents in the area said they heard roughly 5 blasts over the city during the incident. Following the attack, the Russian news channel Astra stated that the fire had ignited the refinery. Man, the Ukrainians have hit Novoshakhtinsk so many times it sounds like the Russians have put proper air defense assets in the area, and it still isn't stopping the Ukrainians, which is interesting. Ukrainian Special Operations Forces carried out a drone strike in Russia's Kursk region, hitting a vehicle carrying Lieutenant General Esadullah Abachev, deputy commander of Russia's North Military Group. The attack took place on August 17th, about 5 kilometers from the city of Rilsk, and left Abachev with injuries that required the removal of his arm and leg. A Ukrainian unit tracked his convoy along the Rilsk-Khomutova highway before targeting it. Video of the operation was later released by Ukraine's Special Operations Forces. Following the strike, Abachev was flown by military aircraft to Moscow's Vishnevsky Central Clinical Hospital, where he underwent emergency surgery. Abachev has played a central role in Russian operations across eastern Ukraine. Since 2022, Ukraine's security services has accused him of directing combat in Severodonetsk, Lysychansk, and Crimea, as well as Rubizhne, during some of the fiercest battles in the Luhansk region. His military career extends back to the Russian invasions of Chechnya, Georgia, and Syria, in addition to his role in Ukraine. Moscow previously decorated him with the titles Hero of Russia and Hero of the LNR for his actions in these campaigns. Ukrainian officials noted that Russia has so far lost at least 16 generals since the start of its full-scale invasion in 2022. On August 21st, at about 4:40 a.m., Russian forces targeted an industrial facility in Mukachevo in the Zakarpattia region, using 2-caliber missiles, according to Ukraine's prosecutor's office. The strike caused a major fire that required nearly 14 hours to contain. Roughly 2,600 emergency workers were mobilized in the response. Analysts assess that Russia's strike on the, quote, Flex enterprise was likely intended to discourage U.S. and European investment in Ukraine and deter foreign businesses from operating there. Analysts believe that Russia had been preparing the attack for weeks, accumulating drones and missiles in the context of U.S.-Russian talks and the August 15th Alaska summit. In the weeks prior to the summit, Russia carried out smaller-scale attacks, which the think tank interpreted as an effort to appear cooperative during negotiations. These limited strikes also allowed Moscow to conserve their resources for the larger assault after the talks. Also, it's not mentioned in this specific report I was reading, but in my understanding, the factory produces civilian equipment, not military equipment, and the employees were given enough warning for an air raid siren that most of them were evacuated to shelters before the strike occurred, but there were some injuries. The UK Ministry of Defense, citing satellite imagery, reported that a Russian-flagged cargo vessel named Port Olya 4 was struck by a Ukrainian drone on August 14th and partially sank. The ship had been transporting ammunition and drone equipment from Iran. The vessel was operating out of the Russian port of Olya in Astrakhan Oblast, a hub used to transfer Iranian-made military supplies, including the Shahed drones and munitions, across the Caspian Sea to Russia. According to the Ukrainian report, the Port Olya 4 was carrying Shahed drone components along with ammunition at the time it was targeted. Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal confirmed that the country possesses advanced long-range weapons, but withheld specifics about their characteristics, including the reported Flamingo cruise missile. He emphasized that such weapons are real and powerful, but further details would only be disclosed at the appropriate time. His comments came during the presentation of the government's action program. During this presentation, Shmyhal indirectly addressed questions about the existence of the Flamingo cruise missile with a range of 3,000 kilometers. Media outlets had previously reported that Ukraine had begun mass production of the missile, identifying it as the FP5 from the Milanian group. According to those reports, the Flamingo is designed to surpass the American Tomahawk in both range and warhead capacity, while also being structured for large-scale production. The missile is said to carry a warhead weighing 1,150 kilograms, and its range would allow strikes against targets far beyond the reach of earlier Ukrainian systems. It has also been described as resistant to current electronic countermeasures by Russia, further enhancing its effectiveness. Up next, we have economy and aid. The European Union transferred more than 4 billion euros in financial support to Ukraine in the days leading up to the country's 34th Independence Day. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said the package demonstrated the EU's commitment to Ukraine's recovery and future as a sovereign democratic state. The funding includes 3 billion euros under the Ukraine facility and an additional 1 billion euros through the European Commission's Exceptional Macro Financial Assistance Program. The Ukraine facility, adopted in February 2024, is a 4-year plan designed to provide 33 billion euros in loans and 17 billion euros in grants intended to stabilize Ukraine's economy and help rebuild the country after the war. Alongside reconstruction and modernization efforts, the program also supports reforms required for eventual EU membership. Ukraine qualified for this latest disbursement after completing reforms in public administration, management of state assets, human capital development, environmental transition, regulatory changes in the digital and agricultural sectors, and the oversight of critical raw materials. Ukraine has gained a seat at Europe's defense planning level after being granted associated country status in the EU's €1 billion defense fund earlier this year. This status allows Ukrainian defense companies to compete for contracts, collaborate with European firms, and take part in developing new military technologies for the continent's security. Reports indicate that as much as €1 billion from the 2025 budget could reach Ukraine through these joint projects, provided Ukrainian companies perform successfully in the competitive process. The arrangement is described as mutually beneficial, with European financing supporting Ukrainian participation, while EU partners gain access to technologies and innovations that Ukrainian engineers had developed under wartime conditions. On April 30th, the European Defense Commissioner presented the €910 million package of the 2025 program, covering 33 projects, underlining Ukraine's new role. The defense fund is structured around competitive consortia, bringing together companies from various EU states to collaborate. Ukraine now has the opportunity to join these groups on equal terms with firms from such countries as Germany, France, and Poland. The first entries from Ukraine are expected in the near future. In the month of August, Ukraine's Financial Stability Council authorized the government to proceed with the sale of its shares in Bank and Bank, a move that signals the country's intent to reduce state dominance in the financial sector. The council, which includes the National Bank of Ukraine, the Finance Ministry, and banking regulators, determined that privatization would not endanger the system if conducted through the proper legal channels. It emphasized that the sale should be carried out in a way that maximizes the value of the banks. This decision is seen as a major shift toward creating a Western-style free market economy in Ukraine, even though the two banks currently provide Ukraine with critical wartime revenue. Privatization is also a key condition for EU membership talks and compliance with the IMF program requirements. Both institutions came under state control through extraordinary measures rather than long-term planning. Bank became government-owned following a 2009 bailout, while Bank was nationalized in 2023 after sanctions were imposed on its Russian shareholders, including Mikhail Fridman. For years, international partners have pushed Ukraine to begin dismantling its state-heavy banking model, and the move is being described as a landmark step in that direction. Still, the trade-off is significant. Bank and Bank, though smaller players in the market, rank among the top 10 by profit and generate hundreds of millions of dollars annually, funds currently vital to defense spending programs. State banks remain the backbone of Ukraine's financial system, holding more than half of all assets and deposits. In 2024, the sector recorded record profits of 100 billion hryvnia, or around $2.5 billion, with state-owned institutions contributing to most of it. Taxes and dividends from these banks alone have added over $1.5 billion to the budget, which directly finances the war effort. Up next, we have international relations. North Korean state media published images on Friday showing leader Kim Jong-un attending a ceremony in Pyongyang honoring troops who fought in Kursk on Russia's behalf. The event, held at the Workers' Party headquarters, depicted Kim kneeling before portraits of fallen soldiers, laying flowers, presenting medals, and consoling veterans who had returned. The fighters were described as, quote, heroes who had given their youth and their lives in the war. According to South Korean and Western intelligence assessments, North Korea deployed more than 10,000 troops to Russia in 2024, in addition to supplying artillery shells, missiles, and long-range rocket systems. Reports from Seoul estimate that around 600 North Korean soldiers lost their lives and several thousand were wounded. During the ceremony, Kim commended those who returned, praising their endurance under constant fire in what he described as a deadly struggle in a foreign land. State media showed him embracing a soldier overcome with emotion, awarding medals to officers recognized for their actions abroad, and meeting with bereaved families at a memorial wall. North Korea officially acknowledged in April that its troops had been sent to Russia and confirmed casualties among them. Last week, Russian President Vladimir Putin praised the North Korean contingent in a letter to Kim, calling them heroic. Meanwhile, Washington has accused Moscow of compensating Pyongyang with advanced space and satellite technology in exchange for its support. Ukraine's cabinet of ministers has revoked the agreement that allowed visa-free travel for holders of diplomatic and service passports between Ukraine and Iran. Government representative in Parliament Taras Melnichuk confirmed the decision in a Telegram post, stating it was approved during a cabinet meeting on Wednesday. The move formally ends the Memorandum of Understanding signed in Kyiv on March of 1993, which had granted visa-free entry for officials traveling between the two countries. I couldn't find anything in Iranian media right now about this, but generally speaking, these visa regimes are reciprocal, meaning that if Ukraine takes that away, then it's likely that Iran will do the same. Normally I'd put this one in operations, but it feels more like an international relations thing, so here we are. Hungarian and Slovak officials announced on Friday that Russian oil deliveries to their countries may be halted for at least 5 days following a Ukrainian strike on a facility in Russia. The disruption comes amid an escalation in reciprocal attacks on energy infrastructure, with Ukraine targeting Russia's Druzhba pipeline and other sites, while Russia has struck Ukrainian heating systems. The European Union has set a goal to eliminate dependence on Russian oil and gas by the end of 2027. However, Hungary and Slovakia, both reliant on the Druzhba pipeline, have resisted EU sanctions targeting Moscow and opposed plans to end Russian energy supplies. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán released a letter on Friday addressed to U.S. President Donald Trump in which he criticized Ukraine's strike on Druzhba. Ukrainian authorities have stated that the Druzhba pipeline is a valid military target. And last item for this week. German authorities confirmed that Italian police arrested a Ukrainian man suspected of involvement in the 2022 Nord Stream pipeline blasts. The suspect, identified as Serhiy K., was detained by the Carabinieri officers near Rimini on Wednesday evening after Germany issued a European arrest warrant earlier in the week. Prosecutors stated they believe Serhiy K. was aboard the sailing yacht Andromeda, which investigators say was used to transport a commando team to the pipelines near the Danish island of Bornholm. Divers allegedly planted explosives on the seabed, causing severe damage to the pipeline on the 26th of September 2022. While Serhiy K. is not thought to have been one of the divers, he is considered to have played a central role as a coordinator in what investigators describe as a carefully organized mission. According to prosecutors, the yacht had been chartered from a German company with the help of intermediaries and forged identification documents. The German Federal Prosecutor's Office has been investigating the incident since 2022 and intends to charge suspects with anti-constitutional sabotage and carrying out an explosion. Media investigations, particularly by Der Spiegel, have reported claims that those involved saw the operation as striking a legitimate military target, arguing that revenue from Russian gas sales was directly funding the war against Ukraine. So far, Ukraine has denied any involvement in the incident. Swedish and Danish authorities closed their own inquiries in early 2024, leaving Germany as the sole country continuing a criminal investigation. Last year, Germany's prosecutor general issued an arrest warrant for a suspected diver, but he fled Poland before being detained. Spiegel reported that Polish authorities may have warned Ukrainian officials in advance, and the suspect then crossed into Ukraine using a vehicle with diplomatic license plates. German prosecutors have not yet indicated when Serhiy K. will be extradited to face charges. And that's all for the main items this week. We will now move to the next segment.
Yeah, hello guys, that would be me. As always, I will now present this week's most important news from Germany regarding Ukraine. We are starting with a cultural friendship and closer cooperation in this field agreed on by Germany and Ukraine on Thursday. Since February 2022, the German government has provided 28.9 million euros, for example, to support artists and media professionals in Ukraine and in exile, as well as to protect Ukrainian cultural assets. In future, German-Ukrainian cooperation will focus in particular on rebuilding Ukraine's destroyed cultural heritage and its cultural and media sector, according to a press release of the Federal Government Commissioner for Culture and the Media. And last but not least, today we got very big news thanks to the Norwegian government, which announced that it will co-fund the recent German pledge of 2 MIM-104 Patriot fire units and missiles from Bundeswehr stocks as part of their assistance for Ukraine. They also announced that Germany is financing a major contract for the delivery of short-range air defense systems Typhoon II from Kongsberg. According to the announcement, Norway is contributing key components to the German Typhoon II deliveries. Finally, Norway is also contributing to the procurement of TRM-4D air surveillance radars from Hensoldt, which were contracted by the German government. The Norwegian government did not announce whether it will finance TRM-4Ds, which were supposed to be part of future deliveries of IRIS TSLM fire units, or once part of a recent contract which features the delivery of standalone radars, but whose contracting party was so far not officially identified as the German government. I've therefore inquired with the Norwegian government to find out more. And I, just as a sideline, find it very interesting that not only Ukraine, but now also Norway splits the beans. Germany keeps quiet about everything. And here we are getting all the details thanks to Norway. Yeah, that's it for my segment. So back to you, Joseph.
Thank you, Mr. Germinade. Well, up next we have Stanimir's report on the Russian economy. So, Stanimir, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, so this week we'll start with the big story, which is gasoline shortages. And we have to explain how this happened. So it's not just Ukrainian strikes, it's not just refineries being down, it's a long set of events that led to this. So first of all, in the start of the year, we had Russian refineries which were still allowed to export gasoline because everyone else was not allowed, but large producers were allowed. They exported 25% more gasoline than in the previous year. This means that during the period when there's the least demand for gasoline, which is the winter and spring, they weren't building inventories, they were actually exporting things outside of Russia, diminishing their entire inventory for such an occasion. Usually Russia has a shortage of gasoline production in the summer, and it makes for that with gasoline production in the other periods if it's not exported. Also, Russia has a problem producing enough gasoline from types A95 and A98 to suit their entire demand, which is why these are the first ones that go out in gas stations. So after this, the strikes started happening, and they further diminished the refining capacity of Russian refineries. But if you see the number 13% that the Moscow Times is quoting, don't use it because they assume that the entire refinery has been hit and destroyed and taken out. Usually what is hit is one of 2 to 6 production lines which produce gasoline, diesel, and all other byproducts of oil. The big problem is that Russia can produce enough diesel oil to even export several times, but it can't produce, like I said, gasoline from types 95 and 98. What happened next was we had gradual shortages of gasoline A95, which led to the price for wholesale gasoline per ton to reach over 82,000 rubles per ton last week. And for A92, which is also remarkable, it hit another record of 71,309 rubles per ton. Again, this is an absolute record. So when this is happening, you get shortages in the outlying areas of the refining regions. In this case, Primorsky Krai, which is where Vladivostok is located. It usually has a shortage of gasoline somewhat in the summer, but this year they're quoting that there were 30% more tourists. I'm not so sure that that's the cause. I think the cause is less refining capacity this year from central Russia to ship fuel to the Far East. That is because Primorsky Krai is at the end of the gasoline refining structure in the Russian Far East. Now that refines usually 14.5 million tons a year in terms of oil. However, the 2 refineries there only produce 4 million tons of fuel out of that, and the bulk is diesel fuel. So Primorsky Krai was primed to be the first place where you see actual gasoline shortages and actual lines of cars at empty gas stations. What happened was that the first company that actually got hit was the NNK. It operates one of the 2 refineries in Russia's Far East. Those 2 refineries one of them is owned by Rosneft, the other one is owned by NNK, It's in Khabarovsk. It's the smaller producing one, and it ships to a gas storage base inside Primorsky Krai. That gas storage was at the end of a highway which is currently under repair, and that led to further delays because they couldn't pass through that highway fast enough to make multiple trips per day. So if previously you could push several return trips by truck per day, right now you can only push 1 or 2 per each 24 hours. So that is further increasing the problems for the logistics networks for gasoline in Russia's Far East. Additionally, on top of that, because the price of gasoline on the wholesale market was too high, I'm thinking that NNK didn't want to purchase gasoline at such a high price when it had a shortage itself for 95 and 98, A98. So that's how you got to the point where you have severe lines in Primorsky Krai, and you have gas stations completely out of gasoline for several days in a row. Now, it didn't hit only those places because we have gasoline shortages now moving further away from that distribution network and hitting places like Zabaikowski Krai. Buryatia had issues. There, the prices of gasoline A95 went up by 20 rubles, so something closer to 80 rubles again. And that was as early as the 15th of August. And they were also rationing gasoline A95, giving it only 10 liters per each sale. And in a similar fashion, we have issues with gasoline shortages at the edge of the other Russian gasoline distribution network, which is in the Russian south. So we're talking occupied territories, Crimea, and on top of that, I'm going to say that even in central Russia, which is supposed to provide part of the gasoline that is used by Russia's Far East, we're seeing problems in gasoline stations in Altaisky Krai and the Republic of Altai, which are saying something that probably most gas stations in Russia's eastern parts are saying, is that if this continues from September, they're going to have to actually close down gas stations. Usually, when it comes to the Russian wholesale market, there is a minimum requirement for the big refineries to at least sell 15% of their gasoline production and fuel production to the independent gas stations. Because a lot of the gas stations are owned by big companies, like I said, NNK, which relies on its own refinery. Rosneft is another one which has a lot of gas stations, again, relies on its own refineries. But because this is such a low margin, they can easily introduce a gas shortage in a region if they want to. I don't think, however, this is the case this time. It's Russia's refining network actually hitting a brick wall and not being able to produce enough gasoline for its needs. And we're seeing that slowly creep deeper into the center of Russia. What is also going to happen is that, like I said, gas stations are going to close down because they're being pushed by local authorities and the Federal Anti-Monopoly Service to sell gasoline at low prices. So that means they're going to be selling gasoline as they did back in late 2024. They were selling it at a loss of 2 to 3 rubles per liter, which for them is something that, if it continues and if it continues to get worse, pushes them out of business entirely. So what we're expecting to see is places like the center of Russia, places like Krasnodarsky Krai also, even further moving up to Rostov probably, these places are going to have gasoline issues where either the prices are going to go up significantly, so we're talking 70, 80 rubles, or gas stations are going to close down. So far, the federal Rosstat agency, which manages statistics for Russia, has only noticed that gasoline this year has gone up by 6%. I would say that in this case, we might throw their calculations out the window, because when it comes to regions where there is a shortage, like Crimea or like Primorsky Krai, like Altai, gas stations are selling at 70, 80 rubles per liter. not 63, 64 like they're suggesting. And on top of that, in this case, either you have a network of Russian state-owned or owned by a large oil-producing company gas stations that are selling at the price point where the Federal Anti-Monopoly Service wants them, and they can cover some losses because they have the ability as a big company. Or you'll see these companies actually stop even offering gasoline sales for a while so that they don't incur losses like the small producers. So it's only going to get worse if Ukrainian attacks continue to be as accurate and continue to take out refining capacity in Russia's central and south and southern and western parts. I don't see how Russia is going to manage for the rest of the year, because this year they also managed to push the maintenance period for refineries from the early spring. They managed to push all of the maintenance periods for their refineries to late into the year. So we're talking August, September, October is going to be the maintenance period of Russian refineries. So they're expecting 9 to 10 refineries to be offline, and they're probably not going to be able to build up an inventory of gasoline to support future consumption, even during the winter months, probably. And even Russian media is now saying that the major reason for gasoline shortages is the, how do they put it, unexpected outages of refineries, which basically means strikes. So this year, unlike previous years, I think Ukraine managed to put a dent in Russian gasoline production and is continuing the pressure, which will likely lead to gasoline shortages further throughout the year, which is usually unexpected for Russia's winter. In October, people expect gasoline shortages to be out. I don't think so. So that's it on the gasoline topic. Next up, we have airline issues, like every week, it seems now. So this weekend, Pukovo, which is the airport of St. Petersburg, had 90 canceled flights because it was offline for 20 hours, again, due to drone warnings. It also had 80 delayed flights over 2 hours and 42 redirected flights. Overall, if you count the other flights from other airports that I think were canceled, I have a number of, I think, 108 canceled flights, and they had to resort to increasing the railway traffic between Moscow and St. Petersburg to cover for the people who couldn't catch their flight and got stuck in St. Petersburg. The next news item for the major news is that this week we had a breakthrough in how bad things can get for Russian farmers. So when it comes to Rostov, wheat production this year is going to be half of what it was last year, and last year it wasn't that good of a year. Rostov region, which is the main exporting region for Russian wheat, went from, well, one of the main exporting regions for Russian wheat, went from a success story in 5 years ago to now Russia having to think about introducing a moratorium on bankruptcies for farmers in the region. Also, this week we had something that was quite telling. Russian butter packages dropped to 100 grams, which is a new low for them. Usually the packages that were being sold in networks in shopping centers and retailers were 150 grams. That was introduced as part of the shrinkflation in 2024. And in 1 year, due to the rising price of butter, they got to 100 grams being the new normal for butter packages in Russia, showing that the Russian consumer isn't having a great time this year at all. Next, the Russian Ministry of Labor is proposing to limit further the number of migrant workers that can be hired in Russia. This is regarding construction, catering, retail trade in alcohol and tobacco. And the problem for Russia here is that there might even drop the number to 0. This is a country that relies on millions of migrant workers, and if they do that, they're going to basically put a brake on their own economy because they can't make up that number when it comes to Russian domestic labor. And the Russian federal government announced that so far this year it had written off the debt of 55 Russian regions worth 160 billion. They have a lot of money set aside for this, over 1 trillion over the next few years. So this is part of their goal to cover the deficits for Russia's regions, just writing off their debts to the federal government. The problem, however, is that some Russian regions don't have just federal debt. They also have bonds and commercial loans from banks, which are very expensive at something like 20-22% interest rate. So when it comes to banking this week, we had only the news that the Russian market for credit cards is showing signs of recovery. So the number of credit cards started growing again, issued compared to the previous month. So 1.19 million credit cards were issued, which is 9% higher than in June. And the limit, the combined limit for these credit cards grew by 21% to 170 billion rubles. When it comes to commodities and grain, Russian grain exporters need 27 handy-size vessels and 34 Supermax vessels. These are bulk carriers for grain to export them, to export grain. And it turned out that if Russia was going to build them, they would cost for the smaller one between 12.5 and 13.9 billion rubles, and for the larger one between 14.6 and 16.5 billion rubles. Whereas if they build them in China, and that's what they're going to do for the majority of these ships that they need, it's going to cost only 3.5 billion for the smaller one and 4.2 billion for the larger one. So we're talking that Russian shipbuilding is so ineffective that it's going to be 4 times more expensive than to buy these bulk carriers from China. When it comes to metals, this week we found out that the price of metal components in Russia decreased a further 15%, and rebar fell to 46,000 to 48,000 rubles per ton in August. This is usually the period when Russia has high demand for rebar, because this is when construction is happening. But again, due to the slowdown of construction and the slowdown in the global market, they're actually not seeing that much of the demand, and prices for Russian steel continue to drop. When it comes to gas and oil exports, this week we learned that Japan actually increased their imports in July of Russian coal by 286% in annual terms, and of Russian LNG by 372% in annual terms. Again, Japan is buying LNG from Russia from projects that are currently not sanctioned, specifically because Japan uses those projects to procure LNG. And I don't think we've done anything to actually cut that stream of Russian revenue. Also, for the statistics came out for the Power of Siberia, which is delivering pipeline gas to China. For the first 7 months of 2025, it was 21.3% higher than in 2024, and it reached 5.69 billion US dollars. And finally, when it comes to India, we learned that after the recent tariff threats from Trump, Russia had to lower its prices for which it sold its oil. Some sources say it gave a 5% discount on Russian oil, where other sources say that the discount is as high as $5 US per barrel. So that is a significant reduction in Russian revenue from that stream. And when it comes to construction, investment in real estate in 2025 are expected to be only 650 billion rubles, down from 1.3 trillion rubles in 2024. And this is because there's a decrease across the board. Both office buildings, housing, and warehouses are all showing a decline in the demand and the building for them. In the construction market, we also had an interesting news. Samolet, which is Russia's largest real estate developer when it comes to housing. Its main shareholder and supposed founder died without any news surrounding his death. They just announced his death last week. And also this week we had searches by the investigative committee at their offices. This company sort of linked to Shoigu and his group of companies and friends from when he was back the governor of Moscow region. So it might be that they've lost their protection somewhat, Krisha, as they say, because the charges that were brought up initially were for late deliveries of housing, which is something that's remarkably common in Russia, because right now 52% of all housing projects are delivered late. And now to some interesting data points. The Khabarovsk shipyard is going to remove 70% of its staff. This is because these shipyards in the Far East aren't often very profitable, and they're optimizing, as they say, their staffing. Also, Russian poultry meat exports for the first 7 months of 2025 reached $530 million, and in physical volume, they were 23% higher compared to 2024, and in monetary terms, 41% more expensive. The reason for this is because there's less demand on the Russian market for poultry, for meat from chicken and turkeys. Again, this is another sign that the Russian consumer is starting to reduce their spending because the prices are going higher and he cannot afford the rising costs. Also, another interesting data point from this week, the governor of the Samara region asked the Russian government to provide Lada or Avtovaz with tax breaks because the company is having difficulty and it was forced to go onto a 4-day working week because of declining sales. Data point from Crimea, they'll have a smaller grape harvest this year by 15 to 18%, again due to the bad weather. This is the drought that's currently ongoing and the spring frost that hit the region. When it comes to Russian telecoms, we saw their performance for the first half of the year, and the Russian major telecoms have actually their net profits decreased by 36 to 83%, depending on which telecom you're actually talking about out of the big four. And they even managed to do that as they increased revenue this year. They're attributing this to the high cost of equipment and also to the high interest rate, which makes their debt servicing even more expensive than before. Also, Russian railway container traffic is an interesting point this week. In the first half of 2025, it decreased by 5.4%. Import of containers was down 8%, exports rose 6%, but domestic container traffic on the railway decreased by 15%. Also, something that's growing in Russia is that more and more regions are introducing mobile internet bans despite there being no drones in the sky above them. We have seen this happen in the Russian Far East in Primorsky Krai. We have seen this happen in Murmansk, which is rarely hit, and in Krasnoyarsk, which is very far away and I don't think has ever been reached by Ukrainian drones. They have had their mobile internet turned off for 25 days. And this has to be linked to a decrease in revenue for Russian retailers because all of them are connected to point of sale terminals via mobile internet. So Russian retailers, when there's an outage of internet, of mobile internet that is, can lose up to 30% of their revenue because their systems are connected via mobile internet. Some of them are now trying to switch to landlines, but so far they've actually just taken the losses. They haven't been able to adapt so fast. Now the final part is inflation and debt. So Russian inflation, official inflation as reported by Eurostat for the 12th of August to the 18th of August. So a deflation of 0.4%. Again, this is a knock-on effect from the harvest coming in and most vegetables and fruit being lower in price. For August so far, the deflation has been 0.19%, and the inflation for the year so far is 4.16%. Again, I have to put the caveat that when it comes to the inflation calculation for gasoline prices, we just have to throw that out the window. So assume that they're probably 30% higher in the impacted areas, or gasoline is not being sold at all. When it comes to that, Russia had two auctions again. In the first one, it managed to sell 17.680 billion rubles. It was at a yield of 14.66%. This is so far the second lowest yield for this year. And in the second auction, they managed to sell 77.68 billion rubles, again at a yield of below 14% of 14.94%. This is the first time we've had for a long time both auctions to have a yield of under 14%. Again, that's expensive when you compare it to a normal country, but for Russia, that is a decrease, both I think almost 4% from the high they were last year when it comes to the yield on that. And I think that's all for me for this week.
Well, thank you, Stanimir, for as always for your very comprehensive report. I had one article this week I saw that I thought I should ask you about, which is that the Russian courts recently froze the bank account of the companies involved in the Black Sea oil spill that happened a few months ago. So I just basically, that was in the news in the Western media, this major oil spill in the Black Sea a few months ago. Is there any kind of general update you could give on that situation? And from the Russian side, is there anything going on with that?
Well, from the Russian side, the town that was most impacted by this has suffered catastrophically. It's the resort town of Anapa, and it saw from last year's 4 million tourists decrease to 2 million tourists this year. It has been significantly impacted. It's almost a catastrophe for the town. And late into the season, they still hadn't announced that the beaches of the town were cleared, hence the outflow of tourists this year. So some of the beaches there still needs to be done work to clear the oil spill, even this far out.
Okay, thank you. And the only I guess I wanted to we wanted to let you go early because you got work in the morning, and it's quite late over in Europe. So I just want to maybe ask a couple of the questions we had just now, and then we'll move to the next segment, Mr. Stanimir. So the first question is, oh yeah, go ahead, sure.
Can I just add something that I forgot to add in the main news? This week, the Russian government signed a law that, or maybe an ordinance is better to say it, but from September 1st, all devices, mobile devices sold in Russia will have to have the Russian Rustore installed and the Russian Max Messenger installed. And that means that if you buy a device from September 1st, you're buying something which has spyware that can even sniff your passwords in other apps as you type them, because it actually collects everything you type, even if you don't send it in any app that you have on the phone. It eavesdrops on everything.
Oh, yeah. So it's part of their ongoing effort to really clamp down on the internet and on foreign or other messaging apps that aren't controlled by them. And now it's to the point where they're just straight up installing the spyware on your phone pre-installed.
Yeah, the FSB is in your house, in your pocket.
Yeah. So yeah, it's getting that. We'll keep people appraised on that front, but it's a very ominous picture for Russian society, I guess. Go ahead.
I think in a way it's worse than China.
It's getting pretty serious. It's a pretty significant part, I think, of the regime becoming more autocratic and more totalitarian, I guess is the word I would use. But anyway. A big topic. We'll maybe cover it in more detail and more comprehensively in the future. So there's just a couple of questions. The first question is, we did a fun little thing. Stanimir in his mind's eye saw, when he saw that 100-gram standard butter package, just like he saw the butter package throughout Russian history since the end of the Cold War, just like shrinking, and he saw it in his mind's eye, and I'm really glad we brought it to some level of fruition onto the internet. And I think it's great. But someone in the comments wanted to know, Stanimir, like, where did you get your butter data? So obviously you already shared that the last point, which is we're now at 100 grams of butter, which is not very much. I don't know how much it is in America points, but yeah, I know that it's not a lot of that's not a lot of butter. But yeah, the before that you had, like, the Soviet Union under Gorbachev, like 250 grams of butter was the standard size. Although, as you correctly point out, in the Soviet Union, it was pretty unusual to have all your products at a supermarket. The issue wasn't the quality or the price or whatever. It was more just the actual availability. They didn't have stuff. But anyway, so yeah, so 250 grams, and then it kind of it's gone progressively down to 100 grams over the course of Russian history, basically. So yeah, check out that video. It's very fun. But someone asked in the comments, like, where did you get your other butter data?
I have an article that we can go through. I found an article, several articles actually. It was a topic in local news last week. So that's where it was.
Okay, so basically the Russians wrote their own article about the history of standard butter size, and yeah, you got the data from those sources in that article, yeah?
Yeah, they were actually being, how should I say, sounding a bit apocalyptic about how butter has now started being selling in packages of 100 grams.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting topic. We had the egg wars and now the butter wars. It's a very important front in the war, if I'm being honest. Like, I mean, no joke. Like, a lot of this comes down to politics and like which side just goes, we're done with this. And so for the Russians, I think anything that's making the situation of the average Russian more difficult is probably to Ukraine's advantage. So yeah, I don't know. It's an important thing to keep track of, as silly as it sounds. So yeah, thank you, Stanimir, for charting the course of butter prices for us. Because yeah, I think it's an interesting topic. And then the next question was just from chat. Someone asked, like, how are the Russians doing at circumventing the sanctions for commercial aviation? Like, are they actually able to get parts? Obviously, they're in a complete financial crisis. I think you've covered that in plenty of detail. But how, in terms of actually getting parts, are they able to do it?
Actually, no. As far as I know, their last plan was to get maintenance in Ethiopia with the Ethiopian Airlines, with their facilities and parts, but that fell through as soon as it became a news story, because immediately Ethiopia's airlines would be sanctioned and they don't want that. Another option they had was the S7 airline was talking, I think in this case it was Malaysian Airlines. I have to check back, but they were talking about offering their airplanes that they can't use, selling them to those airlines, and those airlines flying trips to Russia with those planes that they can now buy parts for. Because right now Russia has, the S7 airline at least has, I think 30, 40, I have to check my article about that, but they have a large number of Airbus 321neo, which they can't get engines for. And because there are newer engines on them from Safran and from, I think, Pratt and Whitney, because they're newer, they have a lower life expectancy in terms of running hours. So those airplanes are now completely grounded, and they want to do just anything to get rid of them and get some flights from them. So yeah, they're looking for options to have other airlines come into Russia and relieve some of the pressure on Russian airlines to fly. I don't think they've gotten far with spare parts, and it's national news when they manage to find one or two planes to buy from some airline that's going defunct and doesn't care for sanctions more. So yeah, I don't think they're able to circumvent sanctions when it comes to actual engines, which they need the most of.
I think that was a great answer. Like, it seems like most countries are worried enough about being frozen out of commercial aviation completely that they're not willing to, Russia has lots of schemes, as you said, to like find broke airlines and like figure out a way to solve their problems with them. But the fear of losing access to the commercial aviation system is enough to basically make people be more careful, or make countries be more careful. So that's good news. Yeah. Anything else you want to add before we let you go?
I think this is it from me for this week. I will have to drop the link to the article on the butter in our chats. But that's it. That's it for me.
All right. Well, thanks very much, Stanimir. We'll talk to you next week about what's going on with the Russian economy.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Bye. Okay, well, up next, we haven't looked at the front line in a while. Want to try to get Andrew in here one of these days, but of course we have Jay, Andrew's colleague, here, which is always great to see. And of course, we also have our colleague Vincent. Vincent was present for our discussion about drones recently that we had, I don't know, a few months ago now. And yeah, it was great. Hopefully we have some more of those. And yeah, so we wanted to get sort of an update of what's going on with the front lines, and just wanted to check in. So we're going to go ahead and turn it over now to Jay and Vincent. So Jay, over to you.
No, I'm not sure about Vincent, but Jay seems to have some issues with the mic. Worked pre-stream, by the way. We tested it. Vincent, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, maybe Jay just reconnect or something. Yeah, kind of funny. Worked pre-stream. We tested everything, and yeah, as always, right? Hello, Jay.
Yeah. Huh. Well, we're having some difficulties with Jay's mic. It's as was said. We did a sound test before this. Everything went fine, but now not so fine. So yeah. Do we see any stuff from the Q&A we want to cover? So someone asked about, does General Keith Kellogg speak fluent Russian? Yeah, I said at the time, I'm not sure. I don't know of any public statement where it said that he speaks Russian. One thing I will say about my own personal experience studying Russian is real hard. I studied it for 2 years and I almost went bonkers. So yeah, I don't know. Like I don't know how else to say it except that, like, unless I saw someone speak Russian, it's hard for me to believe they speak fluent Russian. Like, I would need to hear them speak Russian, and then I'd be like, whoa, that's pretty good Russian.
Hello?
And I'd believe it. Oh, we got Jay back. Okay, Mr. Jay. So, yeah, we wanted to update everyone on what's going on with the front lines. So I'm going to turn it over to you now, sir.
Yeah, sorry for the inconvenience. I think some setting was just wrong with the microphone. But directly to the topic. First of all, good evening from Germany to everyone, and I hope our audience had a great Ukrainian Independence Day today. And as Joseph already introduced, we have a great guest today with Vincent Touré, a great man of scholarship and research. I'm not sure, was you already introduced, Vincent?
Yeah, I can. Thank you already for the nice words. So I'm doing two things. I am a think tanker or analyst at first, doing what we call techno-operational analysis. So we try to see concept of operation, theory, doctrine, are working or not working with the actual practice and weapons design and so on. What is the synergy between the two? So that's the first hat I have, and the second one that I picked is a PhD. I'm doing a PhD on Russian strategic culture, and it's basically, I would say, the same thing, but like in a more academic way. I'm trying to see the continuity or divergence in Russian military thought about their way of, doing war.
Yeah, probably can't have a better guest with that kind of expertise when we want to talk about more in depth about the war in Ukraine, Russia's aggression into Ukraine. To have like someone with experience with doctrines and all kind of concepts of warfare. But I think the first part we will do now is, as announced, we will check a bit, like make a small frontline update. As Joseph said, we didn't have this kind in the last weeks, and there were some kind of, I wouldn't say pretty significant events happening at the front lines we will cover today, but also like I will show also some minor ones. And then after we will transition to have a talk with you, Vincent, about spicy doctrine stuff. Yeah. And I would ask, could you enable me to share my screen on the stream?
Yeah, sorry, I've waited until you actually showed the
No, it's
show the
perfectly
screen.
fine. It's very good. I think we will start in the south. We go like against the clock this time. I think when we go to Kherson, there are no like really significant events. I saw something in the chat with like left bank incursion. Like there's not. Maybe this were like 3 people with a boat, but there's no new crinky or like some kind of operational stuff. Like I think the most mention worth things that are happening is this is the area where the Russians are conducting the human safari. So often these geolocations we have here show like attacks on civilians. They throw drones on old grandmas on bikes. I want to mention one, like I will not show it, would probably not good, like we can't do it on the stream, but I will try to describe it shortly with words. Like the most disgusting thing we could witness was like an elderly man basically here in the outskirts of Kherson was trying to fix his roof basically on his house. Had a pretty nice house, I must say. And he was on top of the house when the Russians, like these, I would say, terror groups, like saw him and approached him with a drone, and they even play games. It's absolutely disgusting. He tried to climb like down from the roof to the next window when he like saw that the drone was approaching, and they did not immediately target him, but they waited, like they played a bit with him when he like almost reached the window where he could escape, and then they struck him with like dropped munition, and he was like severely hurt. And yeah, that's what I want to talk about this year. It's terror zone. It's really disgusting, but not really like something significant for here. The only thing I heard is basically that the Russians redeployed some units like south to Crimea. I think it was some air defense, like probably they want to strengthen the air defense around the bridge, I guess. So nothing very significant. Then we have like one of the minor areas where was some kind of increased activity. Like earlier in early summer, the Russians unfortunately took Kamiansk, this area. Like the front line was kind of here. There was also like a river basin or something. Like it's not easy to cross, and sadly the Russians had some success. It even went so far that they made it with small DRG groups into this building complex. It's a former music school. It's like educational and they made it there and like went into some of the buildings. Ukraine redeployed some units there. I think it was the 210th Regiment, and the counterattack. That's what you see here still on the map, and they retook this position, which is very important because to lose this would basically open up all like the path to Stepnohirsk in the north. And yeah, it has been stabilized, but I would expect some Russian advances here, probably in Plavny. That's where they sent the drones mostly. They will try to advance here, and it has been stabilized for now so far. There was also a counterattack that has to be mentioned. The Ukrainian one was not very successful. It was not good. But yeah, small Russian advances. But of course, if they go further to the north, Zaporizhzhia is not that far away. So then we have the range thingy at some point, where maybe drones fly into Zaporizhzhia. So this is important that at least it has been stabilized. Yeah, that's all for it. Not much to talk about the south. Mostly when the Russians try to attack, it's here at Mala Tokmachka. Sometimes even with mechanized assault, but so far they had no success there. So not much to talk about this. One question I have to Vincent is, as you're around, oh wait, how well can do you have sometimes problems with the village names?
Oh yeah, all the time. But I mean, it's not my culture. It's normal that it's not normal for me to, remember every name.
Yeah, for people who do geolocations, it's very important because you always mention the village, and yeah, you have 10 Poltavkas, for example, as I saw it. You have to say it's the northern Poltavka or the south one. Verbove is also you have these villages everywhere, and sometimes it's really confusing for geolocators. Yeah, but back to the update. This is where Russians slowly advance, claim a field here and there, since Velikanovo-Silka basically has taken. It's difficult to hold for the Ukrainians because it's. I will use a bit maybe different. It's mostly. It's not perfectly displayed on the map, but you can see there's not much wood or hills, something that gives you an edge in defending the territory. It's mostly flat. It was former agricultural land. You have some rivers there, but yeah, it's very hard to defend this topographic area because yeah, it's a long front line, and the best you can usually try to hold the rivers. But the good news were specifically here, this was relatively new. This happened this week, basically, that the Ukrainians retook some positions over here, and it's at the Vovcha River, and I'm not sure if they have presence there. Not that necessary. It's a tactical improvement, which is good to see. I think that's the question with the counterattacks. If sometimes it's worth to do it, and I think here it was worth to do it because it greatly improves the tactical situation there locally. And here you can also see the front line aligns mostly with the river here. So that's a good defense position. I hope Ukraine can hold it. That's basically all about the Novopavlivka area. No real changes here. But now we come slowly to the, let's say, juicy part of the front line where a lot of happened. And before we go here, talk about the main events, the Dobropilya Prokhovsk incursion that happened a while ago. This should be mentioned as well, Udachne. Earlier this year, or in late 2024, the approach from the Russians was to throw a pincer around Pokrovsk, basically, from the west, and they reached this railway line here at Kotlina and Udachne. And then The Ukrainian command restructured it, and basically the whole defense line. The Russians also regrouped, and then as a consequence, there was no more advancing here. Basically, this whole area here was turned into a zone where a lot of Russians went very sleepy when they entered it. But recently, the Russians have restarted to attack here. So they threw, like, not with tanks or something, just infantry attacks, just small groups also. But the pressure here is like increasing, and they almost control the whole village or Dachau, and that's pretty important, I would say, because when they start to really control it, when it is like red on the map, it will become a challenge for the Ukrainians. There's a lot of open space here. The mine here is also not far. That would be the next defense line when they lose this town. But yeah, then you actually have the older pincer getting revived a bit, and I don't probably have to tell how crucial this road here is for Ukraine. And when they come closer to this road, it's basically over for Pokrovsk. It has to be said in that way. So not critical yet, but we see some, even though small gain here about the northern part of the town, which is not really under Ukrainian control anymore, or it seems so. There's some potential something could happen here, let's say it that way. I'm not sure. Yeah. But now, the most important part is here. From your perspective, Vincent, when you got the news, what happened here? What was your first impression on it?
Not good, but not desperate. Not great, but not terrible.
Yeah, I remember this is the meme from the miniseries Chernobyl. Yeah, not great, not terrible. Yeah, I think I was kind of in the same.
Like in the series, we don't have good indicator to properly assess the situation.
Exactly.
But I will maybe speak about this later, or do you want to dive in right now?
No, I will touch it. We can also I think the DRG part is something we could save for later because it's more doctrinal. But yeah, we when we do the frontline update. So what happened here? There was a lot of, you could, especially on social media, you have all the accounts from the elderly experts to the young researchers, and there was a lot of traction on Twitter. What happened there? Basically, to simplify it a bit, Russians were also already pushing here into this area. They wanted to come close to Rodinske. And this is also critical because you have a road there. This was in the past, this road was one of the main supply nodes to Pokrovsk, if I remember it right. And in this area, it's a bit unclear what happened, but basically there was a bit of a hole in the front line, and the front line is not consecutive. You can correct me if I describe it wrongly, but I would say you have some kind of bubbles where you have control, control zone, and then you have the next control zone, then you have the next. And here, obviously, there was some open space, basically. A porous front line, how it was called, right?
Yeah, or non-contiguous, or non-linear.
Yeah. And the Russians, they did not have their big brain intended attack, but they just threw people into it, soldiers, and from two different brigades. I think the one was the 132nd Brigade. So it's basically just infantry. At best, they had some bikes or buggies or maybe even scooter. I don't know. What's interesting to note, I'm not sure if you heard it, Vincent, but the Ukrainians captured some people, soldiers here in the northern part, and those guys basically said they were sent by foot from Zelidovo. That's also what some of the DRG teams that got captured. Basically, here, Zelidovo is one of the main supply nodes, and because of this whole drone saturation in that area, they just marched by foot this whole area here through. that's what's happening. And why does it work? It has also a bit to do with the season we're in. It's summer. There's a lot of foliage. The trees are green. Like it is easier for a single soldier to hide than probably in winter. It's more difficult for your own ISR to track it, and so they obviously went pretty deep. What we could see here. But I also discussed this with Vincent before. You can't really map that. Because this is the best approach you did. But in a map, you always think of a zone of control, or this is like, in fact, is marked as gray zone, so like kind of correct. And you don't, like in that situation, you didn't have really this zone of control scheme, because probably you had some Ukrainians here, maybe some Russians here. It's really like you can't really depicture it. Very difficult for mappers. Like I think this is good, looks good, but yeah. Do you have anything to add to that, Vincent? I'm not sure.
Maybe I will wait for you to finish the whole situation report, and then I will go back to the physiognomy of the front and why does this kind of phenomenon happen. Maybe.
Oh, okay. Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, okay. Then we will continue. Like, one thing I want to say.
Just real quick, Jay. I just want to make a quick observation or clarification. Like, I think one of the issues was a lot of people saw this on Deep State map and they kind of freaked out because they saw the Russian advance. But I think, does Deep State map have like a contested area like Andrew's map where it has this yellow zone, or it doesn't, right?
I think they kind of have, but they have a bit of different concept. But yeah, sure, good that you mentioned Deep. Yeah,
Okay.
Deep State was very important. It's probably the most well-known map, and good that you throw that in. The people were surprised because Deep State often does pretty late updates, I would say, compared to Andrew's map, which happens like daily and based on geolocations. Deep State has also like additional information we sometimes have, but they tend to delay it, and that's actually why the people freaked out, as you said, because this did not happen in a day. Of course, this was a development over, I would say, at least a week, even longer, like 10 days, even 2 weeks, and they didn't update it, and then they threw a like sudden update where the people were probably a bit surprised, like how could that happen from one to next day. So bit of misunderstanding the map in that point. Yeah, I hope I could clarify that a bit.
Yeah, that was great. Thanks.
Yeah, my only, like, before we are finished with this here, we have to wait. Like, I would be conservative. Like, there is counterattacking from the. Wait, I would switch to the Orbit map. Like, it's still the best one we have publicly. Can you see the Ukraine control map?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like you can see a lot of reserves were thrown in from the Ukrainian side, and for example, the 92nd was redeployed. Or there's also part from the 93rd, pretty elite division. Sorry, brigade, not the division. And they already cleared this. Here you can see there's proof there are the geolocations. But that's what I wanted to talk about. Is for this kind of big area, and it's an event, almost zero geolocations. Like, and it's not that the people didn't try or something. It was more or less like really like some kind of lockdown from the Ukrainian side where they did not show anything or release anything, and the Russians surprisingly also didn't, which like is from my perspective a bit more surprising, because usually when they advance somewhere or see a success, they love to post it, they love their flag game, show flags everywhere. But the Russians also really didn't release any footage that could be geolocated. And so this whole concept, how like we also people work, like prove it with geolocations, does not work when you don't have any, or like very, very, very few. So that's also made this kind of very difficult to map it, or like to have a better understanding of the situation, because no geolocation simply. And then people start to rely on rumors or what some mill bloggers say, and that's something where I say that I'm out, I want a geolocation, I want something like a hard fact, a proof, and that's where we can work with. Just to clarify that as well. Okay. Any questions so far? I didn't really look to the audience while I'm having my talk. Is there some question about, in a non-doctrinal way, about the bunny ears, how they were called in the public space advance?
I don't think chat has any specific questions about the frontline update. Have you covered all the areas you wanted to cover, or you can maybe continue with
Yeah,
that?
we'll go on. Like, this is like, I want to mention it shortly because it's from today, or like from yesterday evening, late night, where there was a reported Ukrainian counter attack, or like they gained some, like, it's a bit strange because it's in the middle of the pocket. But yeah, there wasn't like, it was not displayed like, hey, the guys are attacking there, but there was a, like, it is based, like, I think I can show it. Yeah. Yeah, it's from IMI, very good geolocator, very talented guy. And it was basically Russian drones attacking, like, so it's a Russian source release showing an attack on Ukrainian infantry. And I wouldn't make too much out of it. It could even be old. Like, usually I would say Emi is a very good, like, as a source, as a geolocator, he's very serious. But I'm not really sure what to make about it. When the people start, oh, will they cut off this? Like, not gonna happen probably. But yeah, here, like, something has happened here at least. But we'll go on. I also see, I see the time. Yeah, here it's like,
Well, I don't think we're in any big rush, but yeah, take your time. But yeah, we can continue.
okay, good. Like, Touretsk is very well covered by the Touretsk guy. Audax on Twitter is also a great geolocator. It's not that much to talk about. Like, it's a slow, like, Russian crawl towards Konstantinivka. The Ukrainians are delaying there. This here is the critical area, of course, where you see the Russians are not that far away, and here the Kleber, like, the reservoir blocks any movement. So sooner or later, Ukraine will probably lose that here, I would say. They're just holding as long as they can. It's also ugly. You can see here is MRL. Like, you're an easy target here. Like, I wouldn't want to be there as a soldier, but obviously someone has to hold this slow withdrawal from Touretsk. And yeah, it's a slow grind for the Russians. They also lose a lot of soldiers there. Then we have Chasiv. Not all much to talk. Like, it's probably they will start to turn here in the north, like Maiske, Markovo. This could get, like, contested. This whole area here is very good defended. The Russians really will have to grind for that if they want to advance. But here in the north, this advance, when they took basically this hill area here, it gave them, like, some opportunity to actually advance here in the north, and it's, like, interesting because basically nothing happened here. And, like, there are, of course, drones flying and sometimes recon teams, but this front line here, all we don't really have to talk about. It's very stable. So we go to the next important part, and it's Siversk, Serebransky Forest. Yeah, Siversk will be, like, the primary defense perimeter here soon, because what basically happened is the Russians made this thrust here, this advance. Like, in the past, Ukraine was holding here at Bilohorivka. Was really like a stronghold. The Russians couldn't take it. But after months, like months of fighting, years of fighting, they made it back here to control Rihorivka, and they also were geolocated in Serebyanka. And this is a bit sad thing, because this forest was also like rock solid defense position. Like, I think Vincent reminded me of that basically they were holding, like, the front line was basically the same static thing here in the woods, Serebyansky forest, since the Ukrainian, like, successful Ukrainian counter attack in 2022.
Yeah, it gives me flashback for that year. Yeah.
Yeah, and they held it like for over
Mm.
almost 3 years. It was stable. The Russians didn't do much there. Sometimes they came with tanks, but usually if the tank came, it stayed. The forest got destroyed. But yeah, due to the reason that basically on both flanks of the forest, like here, is also Russian pressure and advancement. They're like relatively close to take this here, and it's important, but because when you have this entrance to the woods, and as I said here, this is really high ground. I have to say, I'm not sure. Let's try
Yeah,
it.
yeah, it's close. It's very close from the place where they got their when they tried to go over the river, in 2022. It's very close from
Ah,
this. Yeah,
yeah. I remember what you meant. You meant the pontoon crossing that
exactly.
catastrophically. Yeah,
Yeah,
wait.
yeah.
I think we
It's
can see it on the map. It was here. Yeah, you
yeah.
can see it on the
Yeah.
map. You see the swimming tanks and BMPs here. It's still there on Andrew's map there. Yeah, that's
Ocean
exactly where the
further
pontoon.
to everyone to see.
Yeah, I think what
Yeah.
would you say? Estimate was it one or two BTGs? Basically
Yeah.
got schlecked.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so this all like when we talk about this is like this was in May 2022, over 3 years ago, and Ukrainians were holding here. But and this is basically the Russian advance, like when we were talking 2025. Yeah, here was the pontoon crossing. Now they are here, and soon they will probably also occupy this area. It has become untenable. This is high ground here. You can see it's not that good visible on the map here. Wait, uh, here this is just a chapel on the like top of a hill, and you could see it in the videos. Like this is really like a ridge, and you have a basin. I think I have. Yeah, I can show this map here where you can see it a bit better. Here is the forest. Here is Bilohorivka. Here was the crossing, and you see this the river basin, and here you have these heights. So basically, the Russians control this now, and so it has to be a withdrawal from the Ukrainian side. It's a bit sad, but it's better to have a slow withdrawal than to try to hold this, because, yeah, as I said, it has become untenable. Yeah, that is basically the most or the second most concerning area, because also Russians advanced into like this area here. It became a thrust, and they started from the right side of this river. And they made it pretty far. Here's Chandriholovo. That's basically also the local logistic node, or it was once. Liman is also not far away. And as you can see, the gray zone is pretty close to Chandriholovo. So not critical, but also, yeah, news to meme, not great, not terrible. At least it's relatively contained. Yeah, and that's almost it. I think we are mostly through. Kupiansk, not many events in the recent days. But I also didn't really look it up, to be honest. But there we also saw these DRG teams, small groups trying to do incursions. They went pretty far sometimes, even further than Andrew mapped it. But yeah, it's not that they control. Like they sent two guys into this area here, and the guys stayed at that area. Like. But in general, of course, like the Russians kind of advance here slowly over the time. It's not like you can see it on the topo map. It's also very hilly. These are ridges. We have the river, the Oskil, and it's a difficult terrain. You can't send tanks there, but it's still a bit worrying that Ukraine never cut off these small advances. Like they're pretty weak in terms of forces in that area. And yet no bad news, but there's always potential for that. Let's leave it that. Okay, Milova, I think this was also not mentioned. It's not a biggie because it's not like a very important area. It's pretty minor. Basically, the Russians gathered, I think, 2 or 3 motor rifle regiments, sent them over the border, and occupied this small, lengthy village here. This like it didn't happen yesterday. It was like a month ago, but we didn't talk about that. But then not much happened again. We knew like there was at least one battalion from Scala from the 425th Regiment. And the Ukrainians was sent there in the north. They showed footage where some guys also became very sleepy in that footage, and was around here. So Ukrainian forces are working on it, but this is like very minor area. But of course, there's potential. Like, it's interesting to see in the past, nothing happened there since some drones and shelling, and actually you see it like on the map really good. That's the first time they tried to get a bit deeper into Ukrainian territory here, and they maintain it. So it has to be mentioned. Vovchansk, very positional, no changes, but more tension. Like, there's more footage, and the activity has increased a bit from both sides. The Russians are trying to aggress a bit. I think the most, maybe you're not that serious here for a moment, or one of the most funny geolocations we had is some guy, I wouldn't call it, how would you call DRG in a river, Vincent? Like when the guys are swimming? Is it
Amphibious DRG?
Yeah, I don't know, but there was geolocated footage. One guy was swimming from somewhere up here, pretty deep, like it was a amphibious incursion. I think, yeah, he went up to this area here and then got a visit from a drone. But yeah, he was a swimming champion from Russia, and he made it pretty far. But yeah, so far nothing else. A lot of shelling you like have in that area. Interesting, something happened here. Yeah, that looks like Ukrainian attack. Yeah, so we come to the last Zumi. I'm not sure. Like, is it news that like the Ukrainians liberated some small villages here? I think this is known, or Joseph, Vincent. What do you say?
Oh, for that part of the front, I won't be aware. I won't be up to date.
Ah, okay. So
Yeah.
yeah,
This is something the Ukrainians have talked about a little bit. That, like, Zelensky, the president, has said, like, we're gonna push them out of Sumy, and also for Independence Day, because today is Independence Day. By the way, guys, I should have said that in the introduction. Happy Independence Day to Ukraine. Or is it today? Anyway, it's this week. And sorry. And anyway, they wanted to like say something like, we captured X settlements for Independence Day. So I think a couple of these were mentioned in part of that speech. But
okay.
yeah. So basically, the Ukrainians have talked about it a bit publicly. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's also not recent. Like, this happened in like July, I think, early. Like, it's not new. Also, sorry, Mr. President, but the incursion is still there. They haven't freed Sumi, but no one of, like, I think serious people expected that. And what I want to highlight, the Ukrainian, like, these local counterattacks, they had a kind of a pattern, which was interesting. Like, if I can talk about it for a minute. It's the same what you can see here. They just like it's a combination of units working there. They are very like heavy on drones. They have a lot of drones. Like, the Ukrainians have drone superiority there. The counter, like, from the Russian, is the Air Force. They bomb like shit. Sorry to speak very plainly, but there are hundreds of airstrikes we geolocated in that area, everywhere, every tree line. But still, Ukrainians managed, basically, like, they were very methodical in their work. They tried to basically isolate one village, basically cut the garrison, or what you would tell the Russians there, isolated, cut it off. Then they just waited. The Russians tried to send reinforcements. They went sleepy. Yeah, at some point they took it with force. So basically, these are like mini encirclement. I'm not sure if encirclement is the right term, but kind of like they made sure basically no one got out from that village. Either they were captured or went sleepy. So interesting methodical approach, and I'm not sure if it will happen here, but it looks like the same. The Russians control that area, and I think it's very well mapped from Andrew, because in these areas the Ukrainians doing the same. They're trying to cut off this garrison, and maybe we'll see it. It also happened here in Varanchino, that was also liberated. But yeah, in the bigger picture, this is already like relatively small scale, to be fair. Okay, and give me a second. I think we are mostly through. There's something special I want to mention before I finish my frontline update. I think I'm also speaking way too long. This whole flag game, I have to mention it. It's like it was always like the thing that when like the Russians captured a village or the Ukrainians liberated one, of course they set some guy on a building and set a flag, and your friendly drone showed it. But this is becoming ridiculous. I will show it to you. You see that terrain? It's the same as Kupiansk. It's really hilly. These are sharp ridges. You can also see the river here, yeah. And these were the last heights the Ukrainian basically held after from the Kursk withdrawal. They controlled this area here, Gueyevo and Gornal, because it's very hilly, difficult terrain. You can also not work with mechanized there. And yeah, I don't know. Like the Ukrainians also started to do this, like put a flag there or put a flag there on a mast. Yeah, I don't really see a sense there. And like, no offense, like I'm glad about every geolocation, but I would not spend a minute of time to geo like these flag drops. The Russians, of course, also do this. Because I don't know, it's for me it's senseless propaganda or whatever. It shows nothing. It shows that pilot can drop a flag on some building, and yeah, strange trend. Okay, and that's basically it with the frontline update. I want to conclude it with some message. This whole map was begun by Andrew in the beginning. He did everything alone, and it has really become or transitioned into a project where a lot of people are involved. It also needs to, because it has become very like work intensive, and also we have this great amount of geolocations. It's really like a good project, and yeah, I want to talk about the basement for a second. Not meant as advertisement, but I also did a geolocation. Not very important. It's here, like simple drone strike. You can see that the image is credited what is happening, fiber optic drone strike source, and then here my tag J, I geolocated it. It was pretty easy. You don't see it from the image because it was like a good zoom out. And that's my message I want to give to the audience at last. Yeah, join the basement if you can. If there are people around who are like passionate for Ukraine, who think they can help for this project, you will get tutorials, everything like will be explained. Then you can go on Tochnyi info here, and there's this segment here, join the basement, where you have here's this like short basic requirements, what you bring with yourself. Read this carefully. If you are interested in Andrew's project and want to support it, and you also have this formula you can fill out with your name, and you have to give some personal information. It will all be private, don't worry, and then the team will approach you. So yeah, here, help the basement if you can. Join Andrew Pepetto's project.
Thank you very much, Jay. Yeah, if anyone wants to check it out, the basement is kind of Andrew's team that updates the map and does all the geolocation. And yeah, so if you guys want to help contribute to documenting the Russian invasion of Ukraine, then you're more than welcome to go to our website, tochnyi.info, and click join the basement as Jay illustrated, and apply to the project. So yeah. I think up next, we're going to have a presentation by Vincent. As he mentioned, his specialty is Russian strategic culture. So I believe he'll be talking a little bit about the evolution of Russian strategy in Ukraine. Is that accurate, Vincent?
I will speak about like why the front is looking like this and why the Russian are like how do they organize to find solution to break the deadlock, the stalemate. But yeah, in a sense, why do they keep repeating the same formula?
Yeah, if you mind, can
Great, yeah,
you
so we'll
stop
turn
my
it.
screen
Go ahead.
share? Sorry for interrupting, but can you stop the screen sharing?
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Perfect. Go on, please.
Before going, Maurice, before going with the first picture, if you keep in mind the map, I will maybe begin by this. So to explain a little, like to explain why we had this huge infiltrations. Or did you call it like the rabbit ears? Yeah. So
Yeah, the rabbit ears. Yeah.
yeah. So you have to understand that it's an old trend. As much as you increase fire, you will decrease the density of your troops because new lethality is a thing. It's coming straight from the 80s, and we discovered that when we were able to identify and then relay the position of a target, now with PGMs or precision weapon and so on, we could kill it. And with this new lethality, and the transparency of the battlefield, it has become paramount to disperse and to stay mobile, to not be caught, to not be seen and to not be struck by any missiles or airplanes, bombs, and so on. The thing is, until like I would say now, but it's a trend. It's increasing every year, and with every war and with every innovation. But in Ukraine, we have reached a point where you have so much saturation of fire that you cannot move openly. You mentioned that people had to, walk a very long time to reach their positions. It's because you need to, to decrease the target you represent. So you have to ditch your vehicles. You need to decrease your size, basically. So we reach a saturation fire that impede movements, that disrupt logistics, that totally incapacitate you and your heavier vehicles to break through through mines, or to bring heavy equipment to force the stalemate. Basically, you have to imagine now that the front from the zero line is like from 0 to 5, 10 kilometers. It's like a dead zone where everything, where you have sufficiently fires and detection to basically kill everything that moves.
Yeah,
From
I have a question for that. Sorry.
can I just finish like
Oh, sure.
no,
Go on,
don't
please.
worry, but like, so the whole setup, so from 0 to 5, 10 kilometers, you cannot move or you will be destroyed. And that's where the actions of little Russian troops, squads, are going on. So that's the first echelon, if I could say. From this until the 15 to 20 kilometers, where FPV, so the smallest drones but the most numerous, it's where they cannot fly further, or with heavy modification like fiber optics and so on. But like the density decrease a little. Most drones cannot go further. Then you have heavier drones like fixed wing. So Orlan, Leleka, Orlan the Russian one, Leleka for the Ukrainians, for example, or the Lancet for striking. It's more here. The drones is more like a rocket, or a unitary missile. It will do counter battery fire, so it will target artillery. It will target also concentration of forces, logistics, and so on. From 20 kilometers to 50 kilometers, the problem is you can move more freely, but you cannot concentrate too much. From Ukrainian manuals that I had a chance to see, they were, giving advice to not stay up 15 minutes in the same place. You need to stay mobile, or you will receive a strike. And the strike will, you will be identified and observed through, for example, an Orlan or Zala, and this drone will relay to a Lancet or even to a ballistic missiles like the Iskander. And after the 50 kilometers, it's more. Oh, and I forgot, you also got the glide bomb from the VKS, Russian Air Force. After 50 kilometers, then it's more the strategic depth. So you will be struck by ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, shed, basically. But that's so to give like a first, look at the landscape of this war. The closer you go you got to the zero line, and the less armored, the less numerous, and because you need to be the less seen and the less heavy to have a chance to survive and progress. So G, what was your question?
Yeah, like question observation. I think you described it very correctly. That, or like my perception is that this basically death zone, or deadly zone, is like constantly increasing because of the evolution of the mainly drone warfare. Probably there are like other kickers, but mainly because of the drones, where like we had maybe a 1 kilometer zone when it was all about like on the ground with drones only observing in the early stage of the war.
Yeah.
And I think like where will we be like next year? It's probably more like 15 kilometers instead of 10.
Yeah, probably. I mean, it's a question of cost, of cost of production. The zone that is saturated is because you can, deploy sufficient drone to use them, to lose them, to replenish them. So yeah, I think it will get increasing because the drone technology is getting cheaper, and the design are constantly improving in terms of efficiency, but also in terms of decreasing cost. So yeah, because basically like the first FPV drones were like maybe 3 to 5 kilometers in terms of effective range, while now you got more like 10, and if you add repeaters, you can go up to 15 to 20. And if we go with the fiber optic ones, you can go to 30 kilometers and even more, if I remember correctly. So yeah, the dead zone will increase. And so basically sorry, you wanted to ask something else?
Yeah, like there are also some edges sometimes. The Ukrainians, for example, have some deep strike drone teams. I could mention Signal Battalion is one example, or also in the south they have the squadron, the 65th Mechanized, the Ronins. They go very deep, but also with FPVs, because like while Signal was very like is one of the best crews with the FPV, like not with the FPVs, with the fiber optics. They have plenty of them, and as you said, they go like I would say more than 20 kilometers already in that area. But in the south, they have a trick. They use FPVs, but they have motherships basically. So they have a
Yeah.
big drone, which is somewhere in the enemy air zone, and from there they can basically start FPVs to increase their range, basically.
Yeah. Then I mean, all of this I think it's a question. I mean, the longer you go, and then it will be a question of transmission capacity and how you can, diversify the way you can navigate your drones without relying on direct radio control or SATCOM or GPS based, and so on and so on. And you have like the mothership is interesting because you can basically imagine a model, a design that could go, mute through the Russian front line to avoid detection and electronic warfare interception, and then to go green up again, but like 50 or 70 kilometers in the depth of the Russian defense, and at that point, what do you say, swarm a little around them while in the clear. Yeah, a lot of different way of attacks are not happening, but like are explored, and it will increase. But so the main argument I wanted to make is the front is saturated and you cannot concentrate forces to hold it. So basically, we describe this kind of situation as a non-linear front. You know, the front, you imagine a line and then it's getting broke up. The zones are no more contiguous, and because you need to separate, you know, you need to disperse. You have to imagine a lot of little islands and little portion of the front actually manned. What basically the Ukrainians are describing is they organize no more in linear trenches, for example, because they are getting detected and then, glide bombed by the VKS. They are organizing observation point. And basically, to hold 2 kilometers or even 3 kilometers front line, front edge, you will have 7 men holding like one observation point, and their role will be to not actually fire but to actually direct, observe, identify eventual Russian troops that had been able to go through the fire saturation that I described earlier. And they become in this perspective a kind of last defense, and their role is to to detect, to delay, and to rely Russian force infiltration to second echelon Ukrainian forces. Who can crossfire with this first line echelon position, and that can launch reinforcement and neutralize any invader by launching mortars, heavy calibers, drones, and so on and so on. Yeah. So basically, I know that a lot of people have made comparison with First World War because of the trenches and so on, but and in that perspective, it's not a good, I would say, comparison. But if you look at the deadlock, it's actually kind of working. The problem is you have two states so Russia and Ukraine, with a lot of problems, dysfunction, problem to mobilize, problem to sustain the war, but two extremely resilient organizations that can mount and mobilize a lot of resources, and in the long term. You cannot, in that situation, have a decisive battle. You cannot destroy the forces of your enemy in gigantic engagement, or in a year, or in a 2 year or 3 year. And even now, after 3 years, we are still at it. And if the Russians keep at it, at the rhythm of their progression, it will take maybe another year or so. You cannot destroy the force of your adversary. You can attrit him, you can wear him, you can increase political destabilization, economical fatigue, and so on and so on. But you need to reorganize your troops. So what's interesting when you look at the Russian army is how top-down it is. It's not a question of pure hierarchy, but also in its vision of the world. So basically, when they see a problem, a particular problem, they don't try to solve it right away. They try to solve it by looking at, holistically, like comprehensively, from the top down, how they could, how they can manage it. And history is like, it's archive, repository. Yeah, it's a repository not only of examples for them, but also of experiences. And the First World War had, not amazed, but had, sorry, my English is failing me. So the First World War has been like a very important example experience for them in terms of understanding modern warfare and how to sustain and conduct mass. The reality of mass, when you have to mobilize millions of personnel, that you have to mobilize your economy and so on. And one of the biggest examples that they loved a lot was the German offensive of 1918, with the creation of the Sturmtruppen. The question for the Russian was that the German model was giving a solution to break through, but the German model was proposing a short-term solution. Basically, the German created elite troop, Stormtruppen, but these troops, when they were off, they were no other troop were capable to sustain and to recreate these troops. So it was like a one-shot army. They had one shot to break through in France, and if they lost it, and they lost it, they had no alternative army to keep going the offensive. And when you are not able anymore to destroy the mass of the enemy army, it means that once your elite troops were off, you're on your last leg. So the Soviets wanted to do that. They wanted to create a continued offensive against a front. It meant that they didn't want to create elite troop, but they wanted to have standardized troop. To give you an image of what they wanted, it will be like a human revolving door. They needed to have forces that could be attritable, cheap, that can be launched against different portions of the enemy front, not in itself to break through at the first shock, but to fix him, to attrit him, to actually push him systematically, to destabilize him, and then to exploit some gaps, to exploit the emerging weakness of this continuous pressure of their troops. And it's a revolving door because you want to push, but you want also to have troops that can, revert to other courses of action. You want to push on point A, but you want also to change your axis of effort to point B. So you want standardized troops, but you want to have a flexible system. So their solution was to organize, to specialize the organization of the troops, but to standardize their training. So you have cheap troops, but the way they are organizing is tailored to each different situation. So coming back right now to the actual war in Ukraine, when confronted to the problem of the front and a new attritional warfare, what they did is to specialize their army in, I would say, 3 different blocks. You have a very attritable, very cheap first segment of their troops.
If I may ask
sorry.
questions, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
I think the Sturmtruppen in German
Yeah.
comparison is pretty good in the term of what you want to achieve, like basically to penetrate the front line with small scale troops. But I think there's one difference between the current Russian approach. The Sturmtruppen in the First World War had special equipment and training, so they were like a priority. They were prioritized. They got everything they need, even like specially designed weapons. While currently the only priority I see for this Russian DRG groups is obviously they get proviant, food, water, what they need, so they can do these long marches to these saturated areas, but not this kind of priority on like giving them special equipment. They actually look pretty poor when they got captured, like a basic rifleman, but with additional, as I said, proviant, food, so they can do these trips. Right?
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't explain it a bit better. But like basically, they saw what could the Stormtruppen achieve in terms of infiltration and breakthrough. But
in the operational sense, yeah. Right.
Yeah. But they were like, it's too costly for us. You have to remember that in just after the First World War, Russia is not an industrialized country. It's people. So I don't have the proper scientific term in English, but a lot of illiteracy, a lot of difficulty to form good officer and technical position because of low education in Russia. So they wanted to infiltrate and break through, but with standardized troops that you can muster, but that doesn't involve shiny, costly equipment. They wanted to, by the revolving door, what I wanted to mean is you want the mass to push, and in the grand scale of thing, the opposing system will begin to show cracks, and gaps, because you will slowly divide its attention between different portions of the front. You will force him to defend there, you will force him to defend in another place, and resources are not infinite. And so at the end, you won't have suffered so much because you will have make your system redundant, cheap, costly in human lives, but it was an acceptable cost back then, and it's still now an acceptable cost now. But the pressure is there, and the pressure will slowly erode the enemy, and then you have a kind of trickling water in the cracks, if I may. And so basically, yeah, the DRG are not like pure Spetsnaz. Like you have to make a difference between like Spetsnaz, where
They're not
created.
highly trained in that sense.
Yeah. DRG is an organization. It's a functional organization. It basically means sabotage, reconnaissance, and I forgot the last term, but it's basically a functional organization. And the Russian system is made that any troops should be able to occupy that role. A troop should be able to form a forward detachment or a blocking detachment or a reconnaissance or a DRG. You see, that's what I meant by revolving door. It's revolving function. You want to have standardized troops, but you will be able to use them efficiently because you will have specialized your organization. And that's the organizations that give the standardized troops their meanings and their, coherence and sense of mission, not the reverse. That's why you don't have so much initiative in the system. People are told to be put in that organization, in that other organization, and the only thing they need to master is basically their rifle or their tanks or their very specific type of troops.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's for the audience. That's basically the explanation for what happened in like what I described earlier in the frontline update. Why do the Ukrainians struggle to deal with this? Because as Vincent explained, it's not that you have a continuous line with trenches anymore, but these small observation posts or dugouts, more like concealed positions where you can't be easily detected by the enemy. And it's very understandable from the Ukrainian side because they have to preserve their forces. And it's like the best possible approach, I would say. Like, would you agree with that?
Yeah. I would say also that what is striking is before, we represent ourselves, the Soviet and Russian system, as a heavily mechanized force with a heavily mechanized armored doctrine. But continuous offensive before that, has been created before the doctrine of deep operation and so on, was a doctrine fought for an army of, peasants. It was an army of infantry. And it was made to make the Russian infantrymen able to, surpass, overcome heavily armored and heavily more industrialized and technological advanced Western country. And what is striking then is like you have this heavily infantry model coming back straight from the First World War that is actually applied now because for different reasons. Armor cannot be used as before because of its design, because of the saturation of fires that I described. But then you revert to this basic mass infiltration model. And it's a model that, people were like, oh, it's a decisive breakthrough. Oh, they planned it before. It's not designed that way. This kind of breakthrough so happened and will happen again because the Russian system is made to make it happen along the attrition way. And the main problem for Ukraine will be not to be to be the main problem for Ukraine will be to remain able to focus on the larger front without divesting too much forces and resources to defend and terrain too difficult to defend. The I don't know. Does does it work in English? I'm sorry, I'm getting tired. Does it make sense?
Yeah, from my point of understanding, it's like first, like unmentioned, it's a very large front line we are talking here, right? Like even the Russian army is kind of like stretched in a sense with all these theaters and that are showed in Vovchansk and in Sumy, and even this small incursion there in eastern Kharkiv. And so yeah, like there is like both front lines are kind of thin, and I think what you wanted to point out is that the Ukrainians are not over committed to one like AO or like area, so they lost grip of another too fast,
Yeah.
like to balance it out. That's how I understood you.
They
If I'm
have
correct.
to. I mean, it's a structural problem for them. They need to balance the political imperative to hold terrain for political reason, for negotiation reason, for coalition reason, for international support. They need to prove that they can retain ground, but this shouldn't, for them to hold some position of the front that has clearly been designed along the way as trapping their efforts there. And as I see Matt Kirk pointing that Ukraine don't have enough troops to manage the whole front line, so Ukraine has troops to manage the whole front line, because the whole front line needs more, fire than humans right now. It's one of the main inversion of this war is that it's provoking. It's you replace human density by fire density, and this is actually very good for a defensor. It's very good for countries that cannot replace its losses, its human losses, as Russian can do. I will say that the drone revolution has helped a lot Ukraine because of this, because you can replace your drones by the dozens and the hundreds. It will save the human lives. But beyond that, you have to be sure to not over concentrate on certain axes of effort. Getting the whole. Like actually, at the end of the day, like how much Azov battalions did they put on that gap, rabbit here gap, Did they was it the 3rd or like the 12th that has been put there?
Yeah, I think it was basically between those. Like usually when you have this kind of events, it was probably the border like of or the direction where like each other's responsibility ended.
Yeah.
The weak point potentially. But going back to like, what is your take on the organizational structure on like of the Ukrainian army? Like, do you see potential what could be improved, and did you see some measurements taken to improve the efficiency of command and control? Like that's basically what it's about.
Okay, sure. The corp reform is good because basically, I mean, Ukrainian brigades were getting too big for their own good. Like some with like 8, 9, even 10 or 11 battalions to not to rule but to direct. It's too much for a human organization. I mean. And so they created the corps. They could have created the division level basically. So the corps is good because it will streamline a lot of things. What I feel is what puzzles me a little is when you compare the previous system of command and the new with the addition of the corp.
The old one is, just for like explain it for the audience, was the OSUF O2, and then there's a third layer. Like it is a similar approach. Tolga.
So basically, before maybe if Maurice, I will maybe I will give you like maybe for the audience it will be better. like up.
Yeah, the graphics.
Yeah. I will give you a.
Do you want me to show the first image, or?
No, I think because we are talking about Ukrainian command and control, I will give you another one.
No, okay.
Just need to find the. What is? It is. Okay. Up. Sorry for that. Is it on? Sorry. Just
Don't
one
worry.
sec. Up.
Just somebody
Here you go.
starts like elevator music or something.
Up. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, so you got it?
Yep. Yeah. 1 second.
I think it was made by Farrell from the Kyiv Independent, who is a great journalist, going a lot on the front line with a very good knowledge of current Ukrainian dynamics. Yeah. So that was the old system. So basically, I mean, it's kind of self.
Is it okay, like if you would compare an also like just for like it's a bit like an army group? You had like in the past you had like Kotitsia and what's the other one called? It's a bit like an army group where the O2 is then the operational tactical command as described there. You would have like, for example, you would have an O2 Kharkiv dedicated to Vovchansk.
Yeah, and I have even better now. Oh, it is. But yeah, so basically, the corp, if I am not mistaken, is replacing the OTU level of command. But it should that, I mean, at the beginning they were saying that the corp were replacing both O2 and OSU. But in the end of the day, it just replaced OTU. And the other problem is the corps as so now organic integrated brigades under his command, but these brigades are still operating on different places of the front. So it still remains a very difficult question to ascertain what will be the real effective, command of the corps of the troops he has under him. It will be a very. I mean, I think it's a nightmare right now for Ukrainian staff to, rationalize where are their, troops under their formal command and what the troops need still to command in their zone of operation. It's still a big problem. So the corps is going with a lot of problems, but it's good. I will say it's a headway. What I will consider very good, though, without any downside for now, is Magyar view of dronization of the battlefield. With so now Magyar was one of the best, if not the best, FPV commander, not drone UAV unit commander of this war. And he has assumed command of the Ukrainian drone army, which was a service created, I would say, in 2024, at the very beginning of 24. And Magyar has very good understanding, I would say, of what I described at the beginning in terms of depth and in terms of saturating the battle space, and how to better integrate the different means and effects that you need to wage an efficient drone warfare. So it means the effectors, right? So FPV, your regular FPV drone with ammunition, FPV, but also ESR. So the drone you need to identify to do reconnaissance. But beyond that, also electronic warfare, even counter battery fire on enemy UAV operators, and UAV interception. Now that we have that. And so what he envisions, and seems to make good results, it to better rationalize and unify drone efforts within the Ukrainian army and on the whole front. So that I think is a very good thing.
Yeah, very good example to mention this unit specifically, as we have the graphic here, the visualization, because it all started, I think it was first unmanned system battalion, and was really in the early stages of the war where everything kind of evolved. That's probably also what has to be mentioned about the Ozov Auto system. It was not like a pre-made design, but basically back in the days when Ukraine got attacked and had there a lot of units were created, people got mobilized, were handed into the military service, and the system somehow evolved from that. It was not designed in that sense. So, and I would agree, it became pretty messy, unorganized after the course of the war took. And yeah, coming back to the Magyar unit, yeah, it started as a battalion regiment, and I think now they are a brigade. The 414th, his own unit. He's in command of all now, but his own unit is, I think, now a brigade. Pretty impressive.
No, it is. So before, let me check just to be sure, but like drone units within the Ukrainian army, you had three types. You had the regular UAV company or even battalion within the regular, brigades, mechanized brigades, armor brigades, and so on. You had basically at the end of 2023, 2024 more, but you had basically one UAV unit per brigade, one company, one battalion. And then you had basically the Marines, the Ukrainian Marine had a Magyar's bird, and it became a brigade 1 year, at the beginning of 2024, I think. And then you had...
No.
I think so. No?
His unit, his own unit became a brigade in the beginning of 2025, I think in January or February. But anyways, as you explained, basically every brigade had at some point its own UAV company, or branch, UAV branch for every brigade, and maybe we can go on from that.
Yeah, and you had also independent specialized unit who became part of the drone line project, which was a Ukrainian ground force project to strengthen the best UAV units they had at their disposition. So it's basically K2, Achilles, Magyar, and
those are the independent units, which are not attached to a brigade but act independently, and they're kind of the premium drone squads, to simplify it, and then they get attached to an area where they start to work. I think Magyar is it's with a big unit like Magyar. It is they are mostly operating not only in one single area but more in two or three.
And so the idea, if I understand correctly, is to basically at the end of the day to propose a very coherent cover in terms of drones, a drone cover along the front. And what is interesting is it won't be like the regular drone unit within the brigade are just doing fire support and localized support for their attached unit, but they are doing a whole autonomous cover of the front, and their drone system and their methods will make them able to cover the 5 kilometers, the 20, the 30, the 50, even maybe up to 100, with different kind of drones, with different kind of operation. And it's what is interesting. As they are a specific service, they will be able to planify and coordinate all the troops to the benefits of their operation in their area. So it's it's very good. It's we will see like drone combined warfare, kind of thing. So yeah, so if anyone has other question, or if you want to go to other details,
Well, yeah, no, thank you, Vincent and Jay. I think it was a very comprehensive overview of what's been going on, I would say, like on the front line. I think it was a very granular update that Jay gave, and then it was a very a strategic overview. I think that was a good high-level discussion. So hopefully the audience was able to absorb at least some of that. They can go back and maybe listen back again or watch it back again. But yeah, I think it was a good discussion. There is some Q&A, but I think we might cut it a little short this week. Mr. Germinate, is there anything looking out to you that we should address like this week that's like maybe pressing or something?
No, not exactly. Just a question from my side. Vincent, are you done with your segment? Because I have another 4 images prepared, and
oh yeah, I mean we covered other issues and so on. So don't worry with the rest of the picture.
okay.
Yeah.
No, then no, I haven't seen any questions besides the one we already answered.
Okay, we'll take a look at the chat, and if there's any questions from this week, we'll do our best to get to them next week. We did get to one YouTube comment this week. I was told by one of the other producers, like there are some YouTube questions, or sorry, like comment, like people who watch the VODs are putting questions in the comments. So we'll try to get to those. I just thought people weren't doing it. But yeah, we'll get to those. But yeah, we'll next week we'll do our best to address any questions this week. So yeah, I think we'll go ahead and close out here. It's been a great stream. Thank you so much, Colby, for stopping by. Mr. Colby, is there anything, any publications of yours that we should look out for?
No, I have not had much time to write as of late.
Yeah, I'm really tempted because the universe blessed you with us to ask you about the Flamingo, but I'm just going to have to. We're a half hour over. I don't think we have time to ask Colby about the Flamingo. Flamingo good, Colby? Thumbs up on Flamingo?
I don't have much to say, to be honest with you. I don't have much time to keep up with things as much as I would like in general, let alone write, as I said. But I would just be repeating the things that John has said to me about it, which there's just a lot of hype around it that is not exactly warranted, is the general assessment that I would provide at this stage.
Yeah, I don't know. That sounds like John's take. If the stats are to be believed, it's like kind of, it's like a decent missile for what it is, but nothing crazy. So yeah, I don't know. Flamingo, pretty good. Like it's good. Ukraine will have a missile, I guess.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't even go that far. Like the thing to understand is that this is not one of the primary missile programs that the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense is actually sponsoring themselves. This is a private effort that has not been receiving
right.
much of any government support. That may change, but this is not something that the Ukrainian MOD has been working on themselves and I wouldn't put as much faith into this compared to some of the other programs that have a little bit less visibility.
Right. Yeah. Ukraine's got several missile programs cooking. So we'll see what else they come up with. But yeah, I don't know. That's what we got on the Flamingo. It was in the title card. Yeah, we'll go ahead and close out there. Thanks, Colby, for stopping by. Thank you, Jay and Vincent, for giving us some updates and thoughts on the current military situation. It's always good to have people on. Mr. Gao, thank you for your update. Thank you, of course, to Stanimir. I'm, always appreciative of his insights. You can hear the tension as it gets to me thanking myself. Thank you, me. And then thank you to the chat. They make me do it. I swear. I'm being held against my will.
Chat,
Thank you.
watch the outro. We have a unique outro today.
Yes, we do. Thank you, Jay, for reminding me. Actually, normally I'd be like, "Hey, that's my job,"
sorry.
but he's right. I forgot. No, you're totally right. I forgot. So thank you. But yeah, it is. I assume for Ukrainian Independence Day we have a unique outro this week. So yeah, thank you, chat, for stopping by. Thanks for asking all your questions. I know we didn't get to everyone's questions this week. We tried to get to a couple. We'll write down anything we see that's good, and we'll, or I should say that was worth. We'll be able to answer. We're equipped to answer, and we'll cover it next week. Thank you to people who watch the VODs. As always, you can put stuff in the comments if you want. We appreciate all your feedback, guys. And with that, we will go ahead and close out with our special intro this week.
Outro.
And I'll just say Slavi Ukraini. Sorry, special outro this week. Slavi Ukraini.